Hi, this is Shane from Geeks, and I'm giving tips on how to survive in IT as a junior level developer, on how to make it through all those tough times. At least tips that I think will be helpful to your success if you're just getting into this industry. What I find is that a lot of junior level developers are excited to prove themselves. So I think the number one tip is the number one tip of for everything you do in life. If you're trying to be successful, come to work with a good attitude. I think a good attitude and wanting to learn and be taught how this particular company system is set up. It's highly unlikely that what you learn in whatever school you went to, it's highly unlikely that that code actually exists in some other company, right? You know, a company that's been around for 30 years, if you learned all about design principles, none of that's going to exist in that company. So you have to come with a good attitude and an open mind, because that cookie cutter code that you were playing with may not exist in your first company where you're arriving, like that code of factory methods or abstract factory methods and all that stuff. That may not actually exist, and you're constantly having to take on the challenge of spaghetti code or code that doesn't have all of those good programming principles, But I think when you come with a good attitude, you have to be positive, and try your best to limit your anxiety. Like, it's not the end of the world that you don't know everything, No one has those expectations. The key thing you can focus on as a junior developer is just producing results. And there's nothing more important than that. There'll always be learning curves, things you don't know, adapting to someone else's system, and understanding that people who've been working there longer than you just know more about how the system is set up, regardless of what you learned in school. This is how this thing works. And yes, it'll be great to do all that stuff, but in a company, you can't shut off the money machine just so that all of those programming principles are aligned. It's always a struggle to streamline code and make it more workable. Be honest. When you don't know something, say you don't know. That's okay. And if you don't understand, say you don't understand. That's more difficult when you're dealing with a bunch of geeks. Like, there's a pecking order in the geek world. Like, you're trying to measure up and you don't. You just, you could ask people how long it took them to understand the system, and getting acclimated to this new system is an important task. Another thing I would recommend is never stop learning, And I don't mean, there's a part of you where you have to learn the technology to get the job done. So that process is what you have to focus on. And I think sometimes a lot of developers get caught up in terminology and all that other stuff. But I found that the most effective thing you can do is just get results. Regardless of what it is, sometimes in the leadership role, people will say things like, he should be able to handle like a text change. That's easy enough. That has some condescending to it, but you're going to have to dust it off your shoulders. There are a lot of jokers in here who don't know how to be good mentors and good leadership and to junior developers. They just don't have that personality thing that it takes to encourage and inspire somebody to want to get better, or teach, hey, how do you stay on top of the game. It's just, you're going to be dealing with multiple personalities, but getting results is kind of like the key thing. Another thing is, you can't be embarrassed to say you don't know, because the person who's been working on this system for years or for a certain amount of time, they're gonna, because they figured it out, everything they talk about seems like, oh, this is it. But that's not necessarily what it's gonna be like for you. And so they're gonna be talking as if it's so easy. And you have to recognize that, hey, you have to have that kind of personality to figure out, like, whoa, wait a minute now. I just got here. I don't know that as well as you know that, but just show me it one time, And if you take on the challenge of saying, look, I'm not gonna know everything, but you only got to teach me once and I got it. And if you take on that type of challenge when you move into the workplace, you will find things are moving a lot smoother, because you're creating this notion that, yes, I will need to be taught, but only one time. And whatever you do to make sure someone just teaches you something and you consume it once, and then you figure out, oh, that's what we're doing, that's what that's called. Okay, I understand what y'all mean. Because when you go into a new company, a lot of times the executives are setting up what we're going to be doing. You might be lucky if it's a simple website, but or some other application, I don't think it matters. But a lot of the people who run the business tend to set what the specs are. These aren't real specs. These are just like, hey, make this do this and this and that and this and that and this and that. And you just write that down and you're like, I don't know how you do any of that, because those aren't specifications. And so that's the challenge of going into someone else's company that they've been running. They have their own terminology for how they define things, and you're going to be figuring out, well, what the hell does all of that mean? And there will always be someone who's willing to teach you that. But I can tell you that you're going to be dealing with various degrees of patience in a senior level. Like, there are people who like, everybody's in a rush to call themselves senior level. That's like, it's like a sickness in the industry. No, I'm a senior level guy. That doesn't really mean that they know how to mentor someone or how to embrace them and say, hey, this is what's going on. You need to look at this. They're just senior because they can figure the stuff out for themselves, but they may be in a lead position because they've been in a company for a long time, but don't really know how to teach and encourage and inspire. And that's always tricky when you run into that type of lead or that type of director who isn't willing to teach and mentor and baby steps. And that could bring on feelings of making you feel like you're incompetent, which is like a killer in anything you do in life, where you don't want to make someone frustrated because you didn't get it right. And as you get years into this thing, you don't even trip about that at all. I mean, just today I spent Or was it yesterday? Yesterday, I spent like 6 hours on the simplest problem in the world, and I'm definitely an elite dude, but I guess I just needed a lunch break or something. Because when I took a break and I came back, I was just like, oh, is that all I needed to do? You just have these moments where you're just like, stupid. Why? Okay, all right. I was honest enough that I went to my director and be like, listen, I can't believe it took this long to finish this little thing, but I was having a brain fart, And so people appreciate when you can deliver, but when you're not delivering, oh my gosh, you just gotta take it on the hip. I know we do a lot of coding, but I believe developers have writer's block. There are moments when you just have writer's block and you're just like, nope. I don't even want to say what the problem is, because now you start questioning my credibility, but it was really simple. But those things happen. And so you're in a problem-solving business. If there wasn't no problems, there'd be no need to hire us. And when you're getting into this, there's like this, especially when you walk in the door and there are already developers who are a little bit more established than you are, don't be so quick to put yourself at the bottom of the list, okay? And have some confidence about it, because most of the time you're going to discover that people aren't like, these other developers aren't more advanced than you. They just got there a month or 6 months ahead of you, and everybody pretends to be very, very special. But there are special developers, but that list is shorter than you think, And so understanding the psychology of this business is so important, because when you walk through the door, every single person, as soon as they said hey, we're getting a junior guy, everybody in there assumes that, hey, I'm more senior than you. That may not necessarily be the case. Your number one focus is to learn as much as you can and get results. If you can get it, if you can knock it out and say next. Enthusiasm about your work translates so very well. Like, this is your passion, and the more difficult it is, the better. I used to work at this company where they had this application that was all spaghetti code. It was just, this application was considered like, okay, this is the bottom of the food barrel. Like, we just want this thing to stay alive because we're going to replace it. And it's very difficult. It's not intuitive, and they were very correct about it. But if everybody else is complaining about how that application is and its difficulty, well, that's the one I want to take on. I love those challenges, man. And it was every bit of the challenge they said it was. But I had so much fun working and figuring out how that system works, and it was just exciting. And so while this other team is working on the latest and greatest, this app wasn't the latest and greatest, and these developers put together their own system for, I don't know, having an MVC-like response. It was a lot of stuff, but I was kind of impressed that, I'm like, somebody had some extra time on their hand to write all of this. But, the history of code, it's hard to judge it because the code base was around for so long. But I just embraced that challenge because I was like, no, I'll do it. If everybody, people are not trying to work on this, well, the more difficult it is, the more I want to do it, and so when you start taking on that attitude that bring me the challenging stuff, that translates to leadership in a different way. That everybody wants to work with someone who's excited about what they're doing. And so embrace challenges, embrace difficulty. You're going to get your butt kicked a couple of times. But once you have that right attitude, you walk in the door with the right attitude. Good morning. Someone asks how you're doing. You tell them, fantastic. Bring on to work. I mean, it just makes people want to teach you more, assign you more, and your competency increases because you're not afraid of any of it. You're going for it. And so from the day you get through the interview and you finish the vocabulary test, and I'm sure some companies give you like code to write and all that stuff. After you've gotten in the door, that's when the fun really begins because you get to contribute to a team, and there's a lot of negativity all over the place, and you just got to keep it positive and keep moving forward and reinforce yourself. Like, be an advocate for who you are and what you're trying to become. And as a matter of fact, set that model in your head. This is the dude I want to be. I want to be the guy. Now, the guy is going to probably already be there at the company. But watch how the guy how he maintains it. He's always confident. He doesn't say can't a lot. He's like, well, that ought to be difficult. And I had the fortunate of working with a few guys for like at multiple companies. Like, most of my career is, hey, I left this company and I went to another company to work with all my friends, and then I work at several other places, but then I end up in the same company working with the same guys I was working with last time. And so you really get to learn from the guy on, is that all you do? Like, that's it. And so be confident, be an advocate for yourself, be teachable, come with a great attitude, and just walk through the door that I'm here to knock stuff out. Some of these things are going to be challenging, probably not going to hit those deadlines. And when you mess up like that, or you miss a deadline, or you piss off a lead or a director, and you will piss off a lead and a director of IT. It's going to happen. Because, there's layers to CEO, hey, they said would you be done by Friday? And unfortunately, people always ask you to give high-level estimates. There's no way to get away from this thing. But your first high-level estimate is going to be the first time you miss the deadline. High-level estimates are one of the most worthless estimates of all time. And sometimes you regret even opening your mouth because you want to give an estimate, but you don't want to seem like a complete dummy at the same time. And so, there's ways to put that off and say, oh, well, but there's this addiction to high-level estimates. The most inaccurate, like the inaccuracy of I've never hit a high-level estimate. I just kind of laugh at it now. It's like, if you want one, but I wouldn't take that to the bank if I was you. Most importantly, these are good little tips here. You want to know how they manage meetings. Meetings are so important as a junior level developer. If you have a shop where they have a meeting only when there's problems, you're gonna have a lot of headaches. If you're lucky enough to have a shop where they have weekly or several meetings a week, that is the most optimal situation you want to be in. I've seen it work so very well everywhere. When you have scheduled meetings, estimates become more realistic because you have to be honest. But estimates are very realistic when you have meetings, because you can say, hey, I'm stuck here. I'm here, and when you have those meetings, it allows you to connect with whoever your lead is, or whoever the person you're dealing with, whether it's the VP or IT. Well, you're junior level. I don't know if you can be dealing with the VP, like this. But know that you have to look at these management styles, and right out the gate, they'll tell you, the management style itself will say, hey, I have enough time to interact with people and get a sense of what's going on. Like, you don't have to talk in any of these meetings, but you definitely, whenever you have to say part of a Scrum team or Scrum, and you get to say where your progress is, the best. That way you could get an idea of what the pace is for this team, because sometimes you might be punishing yourself, like, oh man, I just screwed up, and in reality, when you know what everybody's pace is, you go like, dang, I'm in the right pace as far as what they're expecting, but it also gives you a chance to engage the people who manage you, and you just tell them, I'm getting my butt kicked. I don't know why I'm getting my butt kicked, but I'm getting my butt kicked. And those moments will go, and you just got to be positive energy about it. Look, I want to get the job done, but I'm getting my butt kicked. And that will help. At least you get to engage and get to give realistic progress of where you're at. If you're in one of those meetings, in one of those places where the manager doesn't meet or your lead doesn't meet throughout the week, buckle up, because every time they assess your progress, whenever the next meeting is, it's gonna be blindsided. They're gonna be far more psychologically, well, I thought you were done. Why didn't you just come to me? Because people are afraid and intimidated by the guy who is so smart, like, I don't want to let you down, but I could give it to you softly and let you know, hey, between yesterday and today, I'm still working on the same thing. I may need some help. Okay, that's better. But if they like, well, we'll meet again in 2 weeks. Oh man, that's rough. But I think everybody's trying to have meetings, and any good manager or good lead is trying to meet with his team multiple times throughout the week. Even if it's not a fully agile Scrum thing, because I've worked at multiple companies. One of them actually implement the whole Scrum process correct. But most of the time, people just start that. I rarely see managers show up in a meeting. Like, nobody cares. Everybody's too busy doing their job to come and sit around and hear IT talk about some stuff. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm just saying I've seen an attempt to make all that possible. But people who run the sales department don't really want to show up at your meetings. They're just like, look, tell me when you're done. Okay, I need change by today. They're busy doing what they want to do. I could be wrong. You can tell me if you found someone, but yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to share. Just tips on surviving in IT, especially if you're a junior developer. Don't stress yourself out. Be a good sport. Take on the challenge. Learn. Evaluate the environment. You're going to find developers who are very helpful when they have time, but no IT dude really has time to hold your hand and walk with you and be like, come on with me, little Billy, but they'll show you once, and you're talking about a fairly confident group of people. Once should be enough. And so whatever you do, whether that's jot it down, If you know your memory sucks, I always, it's kind of hard when someone's showing you something to write at the same time. So sometimes you need to be like, listen, I just want to go through it one more time just to make sure I got it. And then you start jotting down the procedure while they're talking to you, and then you go away. And if developers, whatever they call themselves, senior, mid-level, whatever they call themselves, they only have to show you once, maybe twice, twice if it's been, oh, I showed you that 3 months ago. No one's gonna, but that note-taking becomes your new base of how to do this job. But that personality, that engaging personality to learn stuff, you take that to every job, because I don't care how senior you are, every one of these companies got some stuff where you just go like, say what now? what you doing? Well, okay, all right, I can get this done. And you spend most of your time trying to improve stuff, at least I do. And don't be afraid to work hard, and don't stop learning. I mean, if someone has to convince you, I don't know if you buy books, some people are good at learning from books. I'm an online video tutorial type of guy. I stay in Pluralsight. I stay in lynda.com, Udemy. I'm all over the place. Everybody gets a few dollars from me. But stay on top of your game. Don't let the company's technology be the only technology you learn. Like, you have to learn to do the job, but the more you expand, the more you can talk about, the more you could, there's a whole tons of CSS frameworks. Why not get familiar with more than one? And the moment you do more than one, you go like, hey, I see the similarities. They're different, but you see the similarities. And so just be diverse, take on the challenges, commit to whatever learning you do on your own, and knock it out. Because one of the most impressive things is just when you have that passion for your profession, it shows, man. People know where they got a winner, and that's all you want to do is be a winner. And of course, it's like, oh, you like me that much? Well, here's my new numbers for you, Anyway, I overshared. I like doing this. I'm passionate about this stuff. You can tell in my voice, of course. And if none of my jokes were funny to you, well, that's not my day job. Have a nice time.